welcome lines and welcome lines and dashers to Mock Draft 2.0. Today we got some stuff to go over, but first we're going to do this intro. There's only really three things that happened this last week when it comes to the news world and to the draft world. Number one, as of today, which is April 10th, Bryce Young has gone up to the best overall odds when it comes to getting the first pick via DraftKings or DraftBooks, the number one sports betting place in the world. And then number two, OBJ yesterday, Sunday, February, April 9th, signed with the Baltimore Ravens, which, I mean, that does make a big impact. We'll see some implications there on that probably here pretty soon. And then number three is that another report came out saying that there's many teams, multiple teams having only one wide receiver with a first round grade. Now, those of you who don't know what that means, it's pretty much each team will give its own individual grades to each players to see which one is ready and which one is not, who they want to take on their draft board, who they do not want to. And the only wide receiver that has had a first round grade for a majority of the teams looking for wide receiver is Jackson Smith Njigba. So we're going to see a lot of changes here with this draft compared to last week, and let's get into it. Alrighty, the Panthers are up first as they traded that massive haul for. I mean, that was the biggest fleece I've ever seen in a trade. But when they traded for the first pick, that means they're going to get their quarterback of the future. And Bryce Young is the best quarterback prospect here. And especially with DraftKings thinking that he's going to be the first overall pick. A lot of the times when it comes to sports books, they're kind of right, especially on these type of things, which is really weird to think about and really weird to say because it is a betting place and betting has kind of a negative attitude, negative concept. But gonna be honest with you here, I think the whole thing could be a smokescreen for CJ Stroud. Now they did send a bunch of guys for CJ Stroud, and they sent one guy for Bryce Young, one scout, but it just could be a smokescreen. And Bryce Young is the most composed quarterback in this draft class. I think they go with Bryce Young. Alrighty, and as we all know, the Texans will just take whoever is left here at the quarterback position and take CJ Stroud. Alrighty, and since the Cardinals are up, they had a trade report, or they had a not trade report. They had a news report come out today saying that there's six teams are wanting to get the third overall pick from the Cardinals. Now, I did originally think that, you know what, maybe I'll just have the Cardinals stay with this pick, but with six teams trying to get that pick, that means that they're going to be able to drive up that price, get a huge draft capital for just trading this third overall pick, and I think that they do. I think that they seriously do. So I think the Raiders are probably the most likely team to trade up with him. Maybe, I mean, we could see the Patriots even. I highly doubt it unless they want to trade Mac Jones away. But I think that they'll get a very good draft haul here with moving down four spots to get a second round pick of this year, an additional third round pick of this year, and then a second round pick of next year. So with that in mind, I think they will go with Anthony Richardson here. Very athletic, very high risk, high reward type of QB. Josh McDaniels can, I mean, pretty much train this guy. I mean, he will be behind Jimmy Garoppolo for a couple of years, but that's okay. He is a project. He needs to learn. His throwing stats are not that great, but you're buying in on his athleticism. So we will take Anthony Richardson. Now, the Colts are we kind of already know who they're going to go with here. There was another report that came out earlier this week saying that they sent, I think it was 12 scouts, pretty much all their scouts, to watch Will Levi. And if you're doing that, it means that you're highly invested in this guy. This guy's 6'4", 229, very, very big QB. Now, he's had some questions with his flexibility and his throwing arm and his throwing accuracy. But granted, the Kentucky football team it's kind of trash. So maybe getting him a way better supporting cast with Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor will help him out. I think the Colts have their guy of the future here in Will Levis. Alrighty, and with Will Anderson falling to the Seahawks here, I don't see them passing up on him. I mean, he's the best pure pass rusher in this draft class by far, 6'3", 253. Now, they did sign a bunch of defensive ends, especially in that 3-4, so they will be pass rushing. But here's the thing, they can't pass up on this generational talent. So we will take Will Anderson Jr. Jr. Alrighty, and the Lions are up next. I don't see them taking anyone else other than Tyree Wilson here. I mean, this dude is very massive, has a good pass rush grade at almost 80, but they're buying in on his athleticism at 6'6", 271. He has great pressures. He's done very well, manhandles every lineman he sees, and they need somebody to help out Aiden Hutchinson on the other side of the ball. I think they go with Tyree Wilson here. Alrighty, and the Cardinals are up next. Now they did trade down, but I think they're gonna. I think I went with this in my video, in my other YouTube video here, and in the other mock draft. But this is kind of one of the locks I've seen, because if they trade with the Raiders, I think Devin Witherspoon is gonna be right there for the taking for them. They do need a cornerback of the future in Devin Witherspoon. Now we are on the clock here with the Falcons. Now I know a lot of you guys were kind of mad that I took Quentin Johnson as a wide receiver, because they do need a wide receiver. For those of you who do not know, I have done my due diligence of analyzing literally each NFL team, researching pretty much each player or position of need through PFF, through their grades, and then also their stats. Because I mean, you kind of need both to kind of pretty much give an analysis on what position they need, right? And they do need a wide receiver. The Falcons do need a wide receiver, as I've said right here. But what they also need is a cornerback. And I realize that, you know what, if Christian Gonzalez is still here, I think they'll probably take him, because he has very good attributes, did very well in coverage. They're trying to build that secondary, especially after they signed Jesse Bates, and they do have AJ Terrell there. So getting a young cornerback to help out that secondary is very good. They did sign a bunch of defensive guys to the linebacker position and that defensive line, so they probably want to invest in that secondary to kind of build pretty much a way better defense than they had this last year in Christian Gonzalez. And the Bears are up. So I noticed in a lot of these expert mock drafts that Peter Skoronski has been picked here. I mean, he's from Northwestern, which is like 15 minutes away, and they need help on that offensive line. I get that. But when I was doing their grades and I was doing the research on that team, now, they do need some offense, but it's more of the center position. It's more the interior line. In left tackle, they could kind of do it, but when I was doing research on that left tackle, his grades were actually not that bad. The only problem that they really had with him were his penalties. Now, we could see them invest in that anyway, but they do need a defensive line horribly, and with Jalen Carter falling all the way to the ninth pick, I don't think they pass up on him. So I think they'll take Jalen Carter. And with the Eagles, I know I did mention maybe taking an offensive lineman here in the last draft, mainly because the guy that they do have left tackle, Matilda, he is a very good offensive lineman. I think he could definitely hold himself at left tackle very well. I'd rather have him at the right guard position, though, which is pretty much their need. Now, I don't see them doing that here. I noticed when I was doing the research on the team that even though I don't have it listed here as a position of need, they do need to invest in that defense for the future, because Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox have been there for a very long time. They're both 32 and 33 years old. They did draft Jordan Davis last year for that defensive tackle position, so I think they'll just try and get the best pass rusher left here available in Lucas Van Ness to pretty much back up Brandon Graham, learn from him. I mean, this guy is very massive at 6'5" and 272, so they will take Lucas Van Ness. Now, this is a pretty easy pick for the Titans here. They cut Tyler Lewan this last year, which means they need a tackle. That offensive line has been kind of trash outside of the left tackle position for years, but now they need a left tackle again. So they will take the best tackle in this class in Skoronski. Now, for those of you who have not noticed, the NFL seems to be having a trend when it comes to quarterback wide receiver connections. We've seen the Bengals have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who are both LSU guys, and then Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, who both played together in Alabama. So I think the Texans may want to capitalize on that, because both of those connections on those teams have done very, very well. So we could see them trying to capitalize on that with CJ Stroud and Jackson Smith-Njigba, because I mean the 1 year that they were healthy together in 2021 almost had 1,500 or almost 1,600 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. Did very, very well, 91 overall grade. This guy has been considered the best wide receiver out of Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and both those guys have been very good. We could see a Justin Jefferson, I apologize, type impact here with Jackson Smith-Njigba for this Texans team. They do need a wide receiver, so we will take Jackson Smith-Njigba. And for this pick, I will let y'all know that in this situation, since we have no idea what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, we don't know the trade value yet or really anything. There has been reported that there is a bunch of compensatory picks, or it's not a compensatory conditional picks. So Not really entirely sure, so we're just gonna have them keep their pick here, but they're gonna go with the best tackle here. Best tackle here with Paris Johnson Jr. This guy can play left and right side of the tackle, even though it says it needs the left, he can do both. He's very big at 6'6" and 313. You want to protect Aaron Rodgers, you get the best tackle you can in Paris Johnson. Now with the Patriots, they do need a cornerback of the future. I put that on my list of needs. They only really had two needs. Now the Patriots, they could trade Mac Jones, but all their guys are pretty solid all around the team. But their two biggest holes have been middle linebacker and corner, and I think they go with trying to go with best corner here in either Joey Porter or Deontay Banks. But I bet that Bill Belichick bank will will bank on Banks' athleticism with a 4.35 40 and then a 42-inch vert. This guy's done very well and has risen up in a lot of drafts, mainly because of his physical attributes. I do believe that Joey Porter could be a way better corner, but the Patriots have done a lot of reaches when it comes to the first round. I think this will be our first big one that we see in this draft. Alrighty, and the Packers are up. We could see them go wide receiver here, but I bet you the Packers are one of the six teams that had Jackson Smith-Njigba as their only wide receiver one grade or wide receiver with a first round grade. And a lot of times when it comes to the Packers, they will do their best to not reach on players. And so I don't think they'll do that here, but I think they do have somebody on their radar. They have drafted safeties before in the first round. They even drafted Alabama safety before in Clinton Dix. I think they'll bank on this guy as well with this great run defense grade and great coverage grade. He has good physical attributes at 6 foot and 190. They lost Adrian Amos, so they need somebody to plug in there. I think they will take Brian Branch. Alrighty, and with the Commanders, their really big need is just that left side of the offensive line. Because as you see here, and yes, intentionally I put Redskins, they need a left tackle, a center, and really a guard. Andrew Noel is on the right guard. And he hasn't been doing that well, but they still gave him a bunch of money. So we'll just say the left guard position. They do need that left side offensive line to be help, just lots of help. And so I think there'll be another reach here because a lot of times guards don't go in the first round. They kind of go in the second because they can't get help from pretty much the tackles. But this guy is massive at 6'5" and 330. He has great grades, a great run blocking grade, and a great pass blocking grade. So, and with his consistency over the last 2 years, I think they will get their best guard left in Osiris Torrance. Alrighty, and no matter what happens here at the 17th pick, I think the Steelers will just go with tackle. And I think that tackle that they want for the future is Bodrick Jones. This dude is a bully. I mean, he played for Georgia. They're tough. He's mentally tough. He's physically tough. And the Steelers love that. They pretty much are a physical type of team. And so they need offensive line help and they need a physical offensive line help. And this guy is young at under 22 years old. And with 6'5", 311, they need a tackle of the future to help protect Kenny Pickett, and I think Bodrick Jones is their guy. Lions here, I don't think they look any further than Kalijah Cansey. Now, they're going to bank on the fact that he could be the next Aaron Donald due to where he is at Pitt, and then is undersized for a defensive lineman. Now, they did go with edge at the 6th overall pick, as we saw with Tyree Wilson, and that defensive line does need help, so investing in that defensive line of the future is key. Now, we could see them go with Joey Porter here because their defense is really the only thing that's holding them back, but I bet you Cansey is getting a way better grade on their board, so I think we will go with Cansey. Alrighty, and with the Buccaneers, I think they go with Darnell Wright here. They do need a tackle. They do need a right tackle, as I put here in this. Pretty much, I put here in my draft needs. Now they could go with QB here, but I don't think they'll reach on a guy like Hendon Hooker here, especially at the 19th overall pick. And there's still a couple offensive linemen left in Anton Harrison, and then with Darnell Wright. So I think they'll take Darnell Wright here, who has been rising up draft boards, who showed very good promise, especially against Will Anderson Jr., who only allowed one pressure against him. So I think the Buccaneers are pretty wild at that, and they've taken a right tackle before in Tristan Wirfs, who's now been moved to left tackle. So I think they're going to do the same thing here with Darnell Wright. Alrighty, and with the Seahawks, this is probably going to be another consistent pick that I'll have in my drafts. I think they go with the best defensive lineman here in Brian Brees. This guy's massive at 6'5", 298. They do need to help that run defense. Now, his stats aren't that great. His grade defense is not that great with the 63, but he will be a defensive lineman for that team. And I mean, they could wait on a cornerback. They could go with Joey Porter here, but I think they'll wait, especially since they got Tyreek Woolen, and then they'll have Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams all healthy. So that secondary is kind of okay for now, but that defensive line needs some help so fucking badly. So I think they will take Brian Brees. Alrighty, and with the Chargers on the clock here, their biggest problem was secondary depth last year. They signed JC Jackson, I apologize, to a huge deal, but he was pretty much injured the entire year. And outside of Asante Samuel and Derwin James, nobody really rose up in that secondary. They need some depth, they need some help, and I think Joey Porter will be that guy. He's kind of fallen here in drafts. He has 77 overall coverage grade though. He is 6'2", 200 pounds. That's very big, but it's also very good, very high potential. So we will take Joey Porter here. Alrighty, and the Ravens are on the clock here. So with them signing Odell, we could see them go with another wide receiver just to satisfy Lamar Jackson or keep him in like Zay Flowers. But when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens draft strategy, they kind of pick just best available player, which has done very well for them in recent years. So their kind of best player available here is Nolan Smith, who's very fast, has a good run defensive grade, decent rush grade, and they do need some. They kind of do need some defensive line depth when it comes to the pass rush, as I've listed here at the defensive end position. So they will take Nolan Smith. Alrighty, and with the Vikings, they do need edge rusher. They do need pretty much a defensive. They pretty much just need defensive help wherever. And as I put here in my analysis, they do their defensive line. They kind of more need a defensive tackle. I mean, I did put that there, but I'm gonna be honest with you, that defensive line needs help. And even though they do still have Zadarius Smith, I believe that he's kind of probably on his way out, so they need a replacement for him. And Miles Murphy at 6'5" and 258 is something that you cannot pass up on, so I think they'll take Miles Murphy. Alrighty, and with the Jaguars, they did just lose Juwan Taylor to the Chiefs, so they do need some left tackle help. And I think the only really the left tackle or the only tackle here that they could get in the first round is Anton Harrison. I mean, he has a great pass block grade, which is pretty much all the Jaguars run is pretty much passing the ball. He's 6'5" and 315, very good. He's a swing tackle, which means he can move. I mean, he's a very agile. Pretty much a very agile tackle. He's very fluid. He's very fluid. I don't know much about this guy to be honest with you, so I'm kind of just reading off of here. But I think they go with best tackle left here because they need to protect Trevor Lawrence. They need him to keep upright. There, you want to invest in your young quarterback. He did very well this last year. You got to keep him upright. Get Anton Harrison. And with the Giants, we could see them go with wide receiver here. We could. I'm not entirely sure. They may be one of the 6 teams that are looking for a wide receiver because outside of Slayton, they don't really got anybody because I mean, yeah, they're one of the needs I had them here was wide receiver, but we could see them invest in that. Mm, this is tricky because they could go with cornerback here. This guy, but here's the thing: he's so small. He's so small. So you know what? With here, I think the Giants will invest in their offense because they did give the bag to Daniel Jones with 4 years, 160 million. They traded a third-round pick for Darren Waller, or they pretty much flipped Kadarius Toney for Darren Waller, which is a huge upgrade. So I think they're going to try and go with wide receiver again, and I bet you they'll go with Jordan Addison here. Now, some of you Cowboy fans are probably going to be mad because y'all are wanting Bijan Robinson here because a lot of y'all Cowboys fans are also Texas fans because y'all live in Texas. So y'all want to see that connection there and potentially with Tony Pollard not signing a deal. But here's the thing. There's hardly been any news when it comes to the Tony Pollard contract extension or deal, which is a good thing because a lot of times if you don't hear news when it comes to contract extensions, it means that both parties are working towards something and it's probably going to end up working out for both parties. So we could see them just invest in Tony Pollard and kind of pass on Bijan Robinson. I think they'll go with Michael Mayer here. Now, the problem with Dalton Schultz is that he wasn't really a great run blocker. And since they do have Tony Pollard, they're probably going to want some extra pass or somebody that can run block as well. This guy is a way better overall tight end than Kincaid. Now, Kincaid has the physical attributes, but when it comes to an overall play style, I think Michael Mayer fits the Cowboys a lot more, especially in an offense that will run the ball and will pound it down your throat. So we will take Michael Mayer. Now, with Bijan Robinson falling to the Bills, as I said in my previous video, if you haven't go and see that, the Bills kind of need to get a running back of the future. They lost Devin Singletary. I mean, we could see not Zach Moss, uh, Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook. I apologize. Become the running back one there. He did show some flashes, but I wasn't really satisfied with him. And I think Bijan Robinson is a way better player than him. I mean, look at that, 96 grade, 97 gap grade. 90, 100 almost 170 elusive grade. Oh my god, this guy was even splitting carries with a running back, and this guy was absolutely amazing. I think he fits the Bills' offense very well. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, so I think they'll take Bijan Robinson. And with the Bengals here, you probably want to see them invest in some defense because I mean they lost both their safeties, Von Bell and Jesse Bates, to free agency, but they're also their biggest need is tight end, and there's no really safety left that they could take here without reaching because Brian Branch has gone to the Packers in this draft. So I think they'll try and get a tight end replacement investment in the future because they've had three tight ends there in the last 3 years. So they may want to just help Joe Burrow before his contract extension get another weapon around him. They have invested in Joe Burrow repeatedly, and I think they'll do that again in Dalton Kincaid. And with the Saints, they did lose Marcus Davenport in free agency, but he had half a sack this last year. He wasn't that big of a loss, but they do need somebody to help out on the other side of Cam Jordan when it comes to that defensive line. And I think they'll just go with Will McDonald here. He has good pass rushing grade, 6'3", 239. He can improve his strength a little bit, but he will be running that defense that the Saints do. So his explosiveness is great. I think they will take Will McDonald here. All right, and for the Eagles, this is where it gets tricky because you have two wide receivers that you could really go for. Now, they don't necessarily need a wide receiver because they already have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but there have been rumors that the Eagles may be looking for a wide receiver. Now, I know they're just trying to surround with Jalen Hurts as much weapons as possible. But here's the thing, that defense still needs help. Now, they did only sign James Bradbury and Darius Slay to 1-year deals, so we could see them go with Forbes. But his weight is so concerning at 166. That's very skinny and very scary. Now, he would sit back a year and probably gain some weight, but he's not probably going to gain weight fast enough. So we could see them go with like Mozzie Smith here, who I believe will go in the first round. Now, I do still have Jordan Davis, but Fletcher Cox is also on a 1-year deal, and he's 32 years old. He's a Dante Poe-esque type of guy. I am more than likely see the Eagles taking Mozzie Smith because they probably don't want to have Fletcher Cox on the team next year, making that big of an impact. And since they were gone with defensive end or edge rusher and Lucas Van Ness, I think they go with Mozzie Smith here. Alrighty, and the Chiefs got very lucky with wide receivers falling to them because I think if they're even one of the six teams that only have one wide receiver with a first round draft grade, I think that they have to go with wide receiver no matter what, especially after they lost Juju Smith-Schuster. Now we could see them go with Zay Flowers because the Chiefs do love speed. They did have Sky Moore last year. Now accuracy has not been an issue, which is a reason why maybe teams would go for like Quentin Johnson as size 6'3", 208. But they have Kadarius Toney and they have Sky Moore. They have both of those really speedy guys. The Chiefs love speed. I cannot ignore that. They already have Travis Kelsey for the big target for Patrick Mahomes. So I think they just go with the best wide receiver here left in Zay Flowers. All right, so let me know what y'all think, how I did down below. Let me know what you do differently and critique me. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to see y'all later. I love y'all. Peace.